New York City. Oh my God. And he's going to be working with our Museum of Glass Hot Shop team. We have a resident team of glass makers who work here at the museum. They're super skilled. They can make anything from a unicorn to a crazy sculpture. So the sculptures that Mr. Kahl is making today are going to be something like you see here, drawn on the floor. We're going to cast these glass cones into a graphite mold. You can see we have some graphite molds for a different project. So the shape is cut into the graphite. Graphite is the same thing that's in your pencils at home, except this is big blocks of it. Believe it or not, it's super resistant to heat. Graphite is good up to 3,000 degrees. So he's made molds for these individual cone-shaped elements. We cast a bunch of them in the morning. They're sitting in this oven over here. And we're going to pull them out one by one and stick them together to make the sculpture. The sculptures will then be used as kind of lenses or prisms. And he's going to project light through the sculpture. And the light's going to break up into different colors. And he's going to be able to make projections of light on the wall. So the sculpture will be both a sculpture in and of itself, but it will also be used to make these colorful projections. So we have our graphite molds set up over there. So we're going to take big ladles of molten glass and pour them into the mold. We'll let the glass set up till it holds its own shape, and then we can pull it out and make the individual elements. So we cast most of the elements this morning. We're going to cast a few more this afternoon, and then we're going to start assembling the sculpture. Does anybody have any questions? What? Just straight glass. What? Clear. It's clear. Clear glass. Yes. We can recycle our clear glass waste. We don't have a good way of recycling our colored glass waste because the big tanks where we melt the clear glass, we can't throw little bits of red and purple and blue in. So there you can see Fred. Now he's going to dump some glass into that mold, and this first glass is just to warm up the mold. So he'll dump it in. You see he did it kind of casually. We'll let that sit in there for a bit. It'll warm the mold up, and then we'll proceed to make the actual objects. So we'll recycle that glass that he just poured in there. That'll go back in the furnace eventually. And once the mold is warm, we'll make the actual objects. Yes? Well, steel melts at a higher temperature than the glass does. So steel melts around 2,800 degrees. The glass that we're taking out of the furnace is 2,100 degrees, so we're a good bit short of the melting temperature. doesn't really have a melting temperature. It just kind of gets softer and softer as you get it hotter. So we keep the glass in there at 2100 degrees, and at that temperature, it's kind of like honey. But if we got a little bit hotter, it'd be like water. If we got even hotter than that, it would boil like boiling water. Uh, the the glass that's in the garage operates about half the temperature of the furnaces. So anything in there is warm, but it's not soft. So we'll pull it out, put it on a little metal tray, bring it to Fred. Fred will grab it with a Kevlar glove and stick it on the sculpture. You see, they'll cut most of the time with their scissors. How does the fire?
As the fire drips, all the molten glass turn into glass. So like when it drips on the ground, then it turns to pieces of glass.
Right. Well, when we get the glass really hot, it's soft and gooey. It's still glass, but it's soft and gooey. When it cools off, the glass hardens, and then it's glass like you know it in your house. But if you get it really hot, it's mushy and gooey. It's still glass.
How can I like stiff it up when it's like?
Well, because the fire makes it soft, and when it's soft, you can cut it with a scissors. You can't do it when it's cold.
Cause it will be like.
It'll be yeah, it'll be too hard
Cause then
and crunchy.
it'll go like.
Crunch, 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 crunch.
And you can't be able to do it. It's glass.
That's right. But when it's hot,
If you smell glass, it will still make on the floor.
well, if we drop it when it's hot, it'll just plop down like a puddle. But if you let it harden and you drop it, then it breaks.
Like glass.
Yep. Sure. We don't know. He hasn't gotten that far. No, no. It's just the artist wants to make it, and then he'll find an art gallery or something to exhibit it. How do they make the graphite molds? They're machined with a computer-driven CNC machine that carves the molds. Mr. Kahl made his own CNC machine, and he carves them in his studio. You'll notice each time we ladle in some glass, We dump the excess glass back into the furnace, and then the ladle is very hot, so we stick it in a big can of water. That cools it down for the next ladle. If those ladles get too hot, the glass will stick to it. Hot glass sticks to hot steel, but it doesn't stick to cold steel. Get a 50-pound bag of these little pellets. A company that makes glass, particularly for glass blowers. No, it's the basic chemistry is the same, but the glass that goes into a bottle is formulated to harden very quickly, so a machine can make 1,000 bottles an hour. Our glass is formulated to harden slowly, so we can shape it by hand. Yes, he's making what's called the punty, Punty, and we're going to start sticking the glass elements onto that, and that will be our basically our handle to hold while we assemble the elements. They'll go in the artwork now. We'll temporarily we'll put them in the garage, keep them warm, and then one by one we'll pull them out and start sticking them together. So when we pour, there's some awkward little drips on the top, and Mr. Kahl is taking the torch and melting the top so that the awkward little drip melts into the top, and the top is completely smooth. So I was wrong about that. There's some little bubbles on the surface. He's using the torch to pop the bubbles on the surface. Every once in a while, the steel pipes get hot. When they do, we take them over here to the pipe cooler. It's just a little metal trough. We spray water on the pipe. That cools it down, makes it easier to hold. So you can see we took the first element, put it on the metal tray, stick it in the garage. It'll stay warm in there. It's warm enough to keep it from breaking, but it's not so warm that it makes it soft. So whatever goes in there stays warm, retains its shape. When we're ready to use it, we'll pull it out, heat it up a little extra, and stick the parts together. Yes, ma'am. Nothing. The two furnaces are identical. They're just, we use one till we're low on glass, then we switch to the other one, and we'll fill the one that's low up with glass and cook it overnight. Yes, ma'am. What? We're pouring the glass into a mold. We're pouring glass into those graphite molds. You see those big gray blocks? Those are carved out. There's a hole in them the shape of these sort of diamond shapes, and we're just filling it up with molten glass. It's called casting, when you may have a mold and then you pour the molten glass into it. Well, we're not blowing for this project. No, there's no blowing involved in this project. But we blow glass here all the time, but not for this project. All the shapes we're making today are going to be cast. They're making a sculpture. They're casting these kind of diamond shapes, and we're going to assemble them into a sculpture like that. So we're making the individual diamonds. We're putting them in that oven over there to stay warm, and then we're going to start to assemble them. So you can see the shape coming out of the mold. So this oven over here operates about half the temperature of the furnaces. So what goes in there will stay warm. It won't change shape. And when we're ready to assemble it, we'll pull them out one by one and stick them together.
So these are going to be the last couple pieces we cast before we start sticking it all together. Thanks for your patience, but we should have some kind of interesting stuff happen in a few minutes, all right?
Each time we take a ladle out, we trim some of the glass that's dripping off the side. We're going to save that glass, and that'll eventually go back in the furnace. We pour it into the mold. We snip it off. You can cut glass with the scissors when it's hot. As we finish with each ladle, we stick it in a bucket of water. That cools the steel down, and the glass won't stick to it when it's cool. Come in from all over the world, and each one of them does something different. Diamond-shaped mold, and we're making it each of the individual pieces. I don't know if you can see, but up you have to stand up, I think. There's a drawing of how he's going to assemble. Yes. 30 parts to it. So we make the parts individually, put them in the garage, keep them warm, and then one by one we pull them out and stick them together. Gabe is making the punty, P-U-N-T-Y, and we're going to use that basically as a handle to hold the pieces while we assemble the sculpture. So the thing he's making now isn't part of the sculpture, and now he's about to stick on the first piece. So we're going to use that as the base to attach all the other pieces together. So the punty is really just a handle to hold the glass while we shape it. The furnaces run on natural gas and forced air. The torches run on propane. There's two kinds of torches. There's a big fluffy torch that runs on propane and air. The concentrated blue-white flame is propane and oxygen. Can we put up some of Fred's work up on the big screen? So if you look up on the big screen, you'll see a selection of our guest artist's work, Fred Kahl. Fred is from New York City. He'll be working here in our shop today through Sunday. On Sunday at 2 o'clock, he'll be giving a talk here in the shop, which will be streaming to the internet. So if you want to hear his talk, you can do it from home. Go to museumofglass.org and click on Experience Glassmaking. Sideshow entertainer. He's a sword swallower. With you. We put up the picture of Fred swallowing the swords. There you go. The great Freddini. So he's a man of many talents. Yes. We don't know yet. We don't have any plans. When he finishes the sculpture, then he's going to find an art gallery to exhibit it. There's no plans at this moment.
The flat face, right?
Yeah, let's start with like a medium to large size 5. Like not the largest, but like a
Like here's this fairly large one, and then we have these ones down here to the left, which are pretty small, or like medium. And then there's most of the 5s are grouped in that back corner, so it's these sizes.
let's start one of these biggerish ones.
What are they doing when they put it in the glory hole? They've got to keep these things warm. If they get too cool, the glass will crack. So whatever part of the sculpture is done, we've got to keep that part warm. And then we heat up the place where we're going to attach another element, make that soft and sticky, stick another element on, keep the whole thing warm. So we have to go back and forth and just to keep the mass warm. We've got to get it hot enough so it doesn't break, but not so hot that it softens and loses its shape. This is how we get our colored glass. We get in the form of these bars. We buy it like an art supplies paint, red, yellow, pink, blue. So we'll blow a little bubble of clear glass. We'll heat up a chunk of the colored glass, and then we melt a layer of colored glass over the clear glass. We then dip that in more clear glass, so the thing looks yellow, but if you cut through it, you see it's just that one layer. So the same is true of this. It looks like it's made out of amber glass, but it's really only one skinny layer on the inside of this glass. Yeah, we can make them thick or thin. It depends how. It's another piece of colored glass melted into it. Few things. This is uranium glass. This is made colored with uranium. This glass is very slightly radioactive. No, it won't hurt you. But a scientist with a Geiger counter could measure radiation coming out of this. But if you know the antique glass they call Vaseline glass that you see in antique stores, the yellow-green stuff, that's made with uranium.
You know your glass is a whole lot.
I know a few things. I still got a lot to learn.
Thanks so much.
So as we add each element, we heat up the spot where we want to attach it. Glass is a very bad conductor of heat, so we get one little strip of it very hot and soft without disturbing the rest of the shape. So that's what Gabe is doing. He's heating up the spot where we're going to attach the next sculptural element. So KCJ in the reddish shirt, she's fished out one of our elements out of the garage. And now we're going to attach the two. Hot glass pressed against hot glass fuses together. That's the name for all these round furnaces, the ones that keep going in and out of. They're just called the glory hole. That's what they're called. Glass furnaces. There's two kinds. The furnaces furnaces, the ones that have the doors closed, that have the big tanks of molten glass in them, and the glory holes are the round ones. They have no glass in them. They're just a hot chamber to soften the glass while we work it. So just to help you understand our setup a little bit, we have 2 glass furnaces. The furnaces are the ones where you see the square hole in the steel wall and the doors closed. Those have the tanks of molten glass in them. Each one of those has a ceramic tank with 1,000 pounds of molten glass. We keep the molten glass at 2100 degrees, and at that temperature, the glass is like honey. So when we want to get it out, we take one of those steel pipes and we dip it into the molten glass like you dip one of those wooden honey dippers into a jar of honey. The round furnaces, the ones with the doors open, are called glory holes. Those have no glass in them. They're just a hot chamber to soften and heat the glass while we're working. Both the furnaces and the glory holes run on natural gas and forced air. We keep the furnaces at 2100 degrees, and we keep the glory holes at 2300 degrees. So the furnaces are kind of on simmer with a big pot of molten glass, and the glory holes are a little bit hotter so we can heat things up quickly. They're going to break up the light like a prism and project colors. So when we assemble a complicated sculpture like this, it's a bit of a challenge to keep everything warm all at the same time. So you see some of the glass blowers racing around with torches, and they're trying to make everything as even a temperature as possible, but not so hot that it softens. You guys have any questions? Good. Scientists have proved that glass blowing is the #1 cause of beer drinking in the art world. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, Kahl takes it home with him. It's his mold. He made it. No, no, it's graphite. You can't melt it. No. He'll probably make more sculptures with it. Not the same. No, he's making them in parts, so he can assemble the parts in many different ways. Uh, yeah, well, we use different molds. The ones sitting on the steel table, those have the kind of jewel-like diamond shapes in them. These molds we're going to use later on in the week to make a different sort of sculpture, but we're going to pour molten glass into the molds as well. These are called marini. We use them to decorate other pieces of glass. We make a big long rod that has a pattern going all the way through it. We cut it up, right? So cut off a piece and we'll use these things like to make little mosaics. They're all about the same. All sorts of different patterns. This one? This one? Nice color. It does. It does. Yeah. No, well, people do. You can make beads out of glass. They make beads and stuff. It's called the Hilltop program. I think if you're from another school, they can get into the program. They have an after school. You can check the website, call them up, and see what the story is. Pen. This is called a cane. We use them to make fancy stripes. We melt them into other pieces of glass to make fancy stripes. Yeah, you could make a pen out of it. You can make them any color you want. Yeah, we make a big thick one, attach it to another piece of glass, and we twist it and stretch it. We make a big rod, maybe 30 feet long, and then we cut it up into these little pencil-sized sections. And those are the ones that's how we use it to make stripes. So now you get beginning to get an idea of what this sculpture is going to look like. The more elements we add to it. Oh, a bunch. I just drew it to give you a general idea. I didn't count them. 18. Okay, there you go. Well, he's going to try. He's going to use different kinds of lights. He's going to use LEDs and lasers and different kind of lights to make different patterns. Yeah. What's what? Oh, that's what. Well, when we shine the light through the sculpture, it's going to make a rainbow, weird rainbowy pattern on the wall. It's called Illumia, Lumia. So Mr. Kahl, our guest artist, he's the man in the gray shirt holding the torch. He's a New York artist. He's a graduate of NYU. And he spent about a decade working in Coney Island sideshows as a sword swallower. Sword swallower. No, in Coney Island, in New York. No, we're going to assemble the sculpture and then it has to cool down for 4 or 5 days. heavy is it? Oh, I'm bad at guessing. I'd say it's probably 20 pounds or something. That's just a guess. I'm not holding it. But it feels heavier because it's way out on the end of that pole. It's kind of, if you can imagine picking up a bowling ball with a fishing pole, that's what it's like to lug that thing around. You guys have any questions? Good. Sure. Okay.
I said, I believe our good friend down there announced that the artist was a sword swallower on Coney Island.
Yes, that's what I said. you guys have any questions? The man in the gray shirt. Where is he? He's crouched down in front of the sculpture now. Oh, he's got a black shirt on now. The man crouched down in front of the sculpture. He's wearing a black t-shirt. Earlier, he was wearing a gray shirt. So as Mr. Kahl adds the individual elements, Gabe, man in dark blue shirt, black hat, is keeping the other parts of the sculpture warm. It's very important that we don't let any of it get cold, because that can start a crack. So Gabe is generally keeping it warm with the big broad torches, and Mr. Kahl is heating up just the area where we want to attach the next element. Like this one over here. Those run at 2100 degrees. All the round guys are called glory holes. They run at about 1500. They're all the same. The furnaces are kind of on the similar. Big top. Glory holes are a little bit hotter. Trying to balance the heat, like Dave is going around heating the little corners, and sometimes that's where little cracks will start. The little corners will cool off quicker than the big mass goes half the glass. Sarah puts it in, generally it's all the same. Dave's running around, little darker, the little parts. These guys are giving each other instructions, but because of the noise of the furnace and the acoustics here, you can't hear them talking to each other giving instructions. But there's a lot more. making custom sheet glass. We're making custom sheets of glass. No, I don't think so. I mean, we can construct a base for it. Yeah, well, I mean, we're making the glass part now. If it needs a metal base, we'll make a metal base. But they're making sheet glass. And so we blow something that has some kind of fancy pattern in it. We blow a big cylinder. We cut the bottom off. We slice it down the side, and we put it in that kiln, heat it up, spread it out a little, heat it up again, and unroll it. And you make a sheet. Yeah. This is the way that window glass was made in the Middle Ages. They'd blow a cylinder. They'd cut it down the side, put it in a kiln, heat it up, and unroll it. And that would be, no, nothing to do with this. No, some of our other guest artists made these complicated sheet glass, and we're unrolling them for him or her. I don't know. We have two artists that do it, Nancy Kahl and Lino. I don't know which this one is. It'll be like a painting we hang on the wall. Be a, beautiful sheet of glass to hang on the wall like a picture.
Steve, we're not with them now.
Oh, look at this. So for those who just came in, we have a guest artist today, Fred Kahl, the man in the black shirt, and the big yellow mittens. We call him Mittens. We're making a sculpture out of a bunch. We've cast these sort of cone-shaped prisms, and we're making a sculpture out of it. So we've cast a bunch of these, different shapes and sizes. We placed them in this oven over here. We're keeping them warm. And one by one, we're taking them out and attaching them to the sculpture. So we're heating up a spot on the side of the sculpture. We want to stick the next one. Hot glass sticks to hot glass. We press the two together. The two pieces of glass will fuse, and that will be permanently affixed. So while we continue to assemble our sculpture, we're going to cast some more of these elements. We have the graphite molds on the table. Does anybody have any questions? So, Mr. Kahl, our guest artist, wearing the big gloves, he's going to use these sculptures to project light through to make projections called lumia. Well, I think we have a video. We can show you of some of the projections. So you can see the sculpture in the lower left. Yeah, it is. It's kind of Northern Lighty. Yeah, it definitely looks like that. So these are the kind of effects that we want to get projecting light through the finished sculpture. So as we're continuing to add more elements to the sculpture, we're also casting some new elements, pouring molten glass into those graphite molds. So each one of those sort of diamond-shaped elements is made by pouring molten glass into a graphite mold. Do you guys have any questions? Think of those little triangles. It takes a lot of it. He wants to make it kind of almost a spherical shape. So it takes a lot of. Does anybody have any questions? Kind of like the Northern Lights, sort of. That's the closest thing I can. I think he's going to project all sorts of different things through him. Can we play the projection video? We have a little video clip. How about just look at the screen? What? Well, we were projecting colors through the sculpture, and it makes different patterns on the wall. That's what it was. So we're going to do the same thing with this sculpture that he's making now. No, we're trying to make colored light. Yes, sir. 23. Well, it's usually 2,300, but they seem to have turned it down. So I'm thinking probably maybe 1,800 at this point. Usually it's glowing a bright yellow orange. Now it's kind of a reddish orange. Natural gas and forced air. No, it's soda lime glass. You guys have any questions? No. Well, come on, it'll keep me awake. Sure. The colors come mostly from metals dissolved in the glass when you first cook it up. Not everything that colors glass is a metal, uh, but most of the colors are. So chromium makes green, cobalt makes blue, a little bit of gold makes pink, tin makes white. If it's a gold pink, there's several ways you can make pink that are not gold. But oh, it's like a projector or a laser, something that's going to shoot light through the sculptures. We don't know exactly what we're going to use. So we're calling it a light source. We have a little video to show the projections. Would you like to see that? Can we play the projection video? How what? How many more pieces? So he's added all the elements he's going to. We're getting ready to kind of even out the heat, and then we'll put the sculpture into our annealing oven where it'll be cooled slowly over 4 or 5 days. as possible before we put it. Yeah, the oven has a computerized thermostat. So it's sitting right now at 9 degrees. Place all the objects we make during the day in there. And then at night, we start the cycle slowly, slowly pushing it out. Now, for his sake, because they take so long to cool, we'll probably keep the oven hot all week. We'll place everything in there and then cool it down after the cook. Yeah, just with the funky. Yeah, and then there'll probably be a little, when we break it off the funky, there'll probably be a little extra glass to leave on there. That has to get ground off. Yeah. So one of the glass blowers is put on some protective clothing. That jacket is made out of Kevlar and has a little aluminum reflective coating on it to reflect the heat. When we grab that sculpture, it'll be about 1,000 degrees. Yep. At what? So a few drops of water on the joint between the sculpture and the metal rod. The cold water will hit the hot glass and crack it. And then just a little tap, and off it comes. We'll take it to our annealing oven, where it will be cooled very, very slowly to prevent it from breaking. So let's have a hand for the Fred Kahl and the Museum of Glass Hot Shop team. So the glass blowers are going to take a little break. One of the other things that we do here that we really enjoy is our kids design glass. We have a contest for kids. Any kid that comes to the museum can do a drawing. Once a month, we pick one of the drawings and make it out of glass. We make 2 copies, one for the kid to take home and one for the museum collection. So we have a little video. We can show you some of the fun things we've done with the kids in the past.
It's a baby monster. Pip is a baby monster that loves to smile and laugh. Even though he's little and cute, he gives a big cry. Also, Pip loves food, especially bananas. He will eat any speck of food in sight.
especially if the pieces of art go traveling around, other kids will see, oh my gosh, I could do that too. You know, it's not just somebody else that, you know, they did it, you know, I couldn't do that. Absolutely not. Anyone can do this. And I think that's what it shows the kids.
Maybe not everybody can win.
But,
I think it's gonna stand up there with one of the coolest things that a museum has ever done.
What is it, a cucumber all dressed up for a night on the town? That's pretty ridiculously funny.
The funnest part about this project is how fresh the ideas are coming from the kids who they have no idea of glass blowing techniques. They don't care.
Nobody saw this coming. We'd make one piece and it was given to the family. And then we realized, well, wait a second, there's something more here. We started to get more drawings, more interesting drawings, and it really kind of snowballed a little bit.
Bacon Boy was special.
That almost looks like a frying pan.
Maybe he's wearing a frying pan.
I don't really do any work when I present, just bake.
bacon, baby.
It's fine.
Oh, that's glass. Cool. All I see.
How's that for his arm? Fingers?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it really brings it home and really shows that, you know, there's an artist in all of us, I think. So, and it's human nature to be creative. So I think we lose that as we get older sometimes, and it's cool to see this pure creative nature that children possess. So I think it's cool to share that with the rest of the world, hopefully. So.
Thank you for supporting Kids Design Glass.
Can we play color overlay? Well, play a few videos while the glass blowers are taking a short break.
The color in glass comes from adding various materials to the mixture of raw ingredients called batch. Most of the colorants are compounds containing some kind of metal. For example, adding cobalt to clear glass creates a deep blue. Tin and antimony can be used to create white glass, and gold chloride can produce a rich red or pink colored glass. Colored glass is melted in furnaces, just like clear glass, and then is usually rolled into bars for storage and easy application. In order to apply color bar to a bubble, we first need to preheat the color to approximately 950 or 1000 degrees Fahrenheit in a color oven or garage. Once warm, the color is then picked up on the end of a punty rod using a little bit of clear glass as a support. The color is then heated in the 2300 degree glory hole to soften it and make it malleable, while another artist creates a small bubble of clear glass on a blowpipe. Once warm, the color is dropped over the clear bubble, and then using a variety of hand tools or the steel marver, the color is rolled back over the clear in an even layer. This process is called dropping color, or creating a color overlay. Depending on the project, that bubble is then usually gathered over with clear glass and blown into the final form. finished product may appear to be all made from colored glass, but when viewed in cross-section, we can see that there is only a thin layer of color sandwiched between many layers of clear glass.
So we're doing a little bit of cleanup. We made some extra ones that we're not going to use today. So we're throwing back into the furnace, and we're going to melt them again and use the glass tomorrow. Yeah. This is just sort of, I mean, yeah, we're just kind of reclaiming some of the pieces we're not going to use. But yeah, the main sculpting part is over. So the main sculpting part is done for the day.